We are tonight's entertainment.
You can't handle the truth.
The fire rises.
Pizza time.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So it begins.
You know how much I sacrifice?
You think that's air you're breathing?
Groovy.
I don't have friends. I got family.
We are Sex People! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Craft Services.
Hey, Trent.
Hi, Parth.
Good to see you.
You too. We have a film podcast.
You're looking well.
Likewise.
What have you been eating most recently?
I made pancakes and cut up some banana and some syrup, and it was good. What about you?
That sounds wonderful. Last night, my parents ordered Domino's pizza. Today, for lunch, I had some Domino's pizza, but then it wasn't quite enough. So my mom made some dal with rice, which is just like lentils for the uninitiated. And it was pretty good. And now we're here, just recording this episode.
Yeah, we just talked for like 30 minutes pretty engaged before this, but now we find ourselves pretty out of gas. But like, hey man, nice to see you.
It's good to see you too. Well, we spent like 45 minutes maybe sort of discussing current affairs.
The hot
Trent thought
goss.
that I was
Hot
shit-talking his
gossip.
apartment. I was trying to vehemently deny such activity.
Apparently yesterday for 2 to 3 minutes you were really scared I was mad at you.
Which is usually, I think, the other way around for our dynamic.
True. But it's what prompted it was I just kept saying to Parth, I'm watching, always watching, and then I sent him a picture of, or a gif of Roz from Monsters, Inc.
But then you sent a photo of 2 bananas in, what are they in?
In my early stages of trying to be John Wilson of seeing interesting things in New York City, it's a picture of just 2 bananas left on like a train pillar, and they're still in their peels, obviously, and they look perfectly good. They honestly look kind of ripe and delicious. And as someone who eats 1 to 2 bananas a day, I took this picture and then walked away and took a picture and was like, that's so ridiculous. Who would leave that there? That's kind of gross. And then I walked away and I was like, that's so wasteful of me to not grab those perfectly good bananas. They have that protective shell, for no other reason, to be disregarded on the subway and for it to be technically okay to pick them up.
Well, but you sent that photo of the 2 bananas, and what you said, it was like, that's us or something?
I said, saw this today, and then you said, lost banana, and I said, that's us. Because it is 2 bananas, like, nestled together, and that was sort of trying to be the olive branch.
Lost but not forgotten.
By that point in the conversation, did you know that we were okay? Or did
I had an inkling that you were... I thought he's probably a little annoyed, but not so annoyed that he couldn't send this photo to me.
What healed it from my perspective was you sent me a picture of Joe Biden smiling, and it really, like, knocked me off my axis, and I'm like, I forgot I was mad. Because
it's a pretty good photo, isn't it?
I showed it around the room, and everyone got a kick out of it as well.
Great. But speaking of getting a kick out of things, we got a pretty killer intro. Do you think the audience would get a kick out of that?
I do. Just a quick note about Roz from Monsters, Inc. I went to Disneyland with a friend, and they made me take pictures of them kind of the whole time, and they mocked me because as I took no pictures of myself. And on the last day, we were on the Monsters, Inc. ride, and there was like a big Roz, and I was like, you need to take my picture with this.
Nice.
And that was like the only picture I've got from Disney. It's like, and I have one with the Millennium Falcon. I'm only human, you know. But yeah, no, the intro is important too.
All right, let's do it and cue it.
Do it. Let's do it to it, my dudes.
Welcome back to Craft Services, where we talk about the movies. Each week we talk about a film and hopefully have a crew member of that film to talk with us about their experience working on the picture. And this week we're continuing our discussion with
editor Eddie Hamilton. He's worked on, I don't know, such films as like Kick-Ass, like the past 4 Mission Impossible movies, Top Gun Maverick.
He didn't get nominated for an Oscar for Top Gun, did he?
Here's the thing, he did.
No.
And as if none of those things were important enough, these are some of the films that Parth holds nearest and dearest to his heart.
It's true. I'm a big TC guy. And he gets into some big TC things in this episode.
And he was roommates with TC, as we revealed in
Yes.
part 1. If you didn't hear that, this is where you're going to want to pause, stop, go back, rewind to part 1.
If
But-
you haven't listened to part 1, I do think that you should go back, take a listen. But if you did and you're ready for part 2, I
No,
think
you're
this
ready.
is a pretty cool episode. And guys, I know we usually do 2-part interviews, but I'm sorry to say that we talked to Eddie Hamilton for an hour.
He's a big guest. He's a big fish. It's like
Big kahuna.
Big kahuna, final question. We'll get there in the part 3, as you mentioned. But it's like we caught a big fish 3 years ago, and then we talked to him and we asked him questions about Top Gun Maverick, and then we released him back into the lake, and then we went fishing again. We sent out some emails. Those were like the bait. And we caught the same big fish, and we brought him back into our boat for another good conversation.
Well, it's like if you love something, let it go. And if it's meant to be, they'll come back. And let's just say Eddie Hamilton came back.
Yes, and we thank him. We thank his team for setting it up. We loved Mission. Anyone who's listening, if you haven't seen it, go check it.
Go check it out before it leaves theaters.
See it on as big a screen as you can. You got to trust Parth and I one last time.
One last time. And if you're thinking, I haven't seen any of the other movies, or like, I don't really like the last one, so I'm not going to go see it. That's exactly what the entity wants you to do.
Yeah, we're living in the entity's reality now. And just think about how...
Choose not to live in the entity's reality.
Think about how I have seen exclusively Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, which is no longer a movie, and Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, and I enjoyed both plenty.
Yeah.
Is that what they wanted? No. Is that what they got? Yes. But it's sort of a good contrast of like, Parth sort of knows his shit, so it's good to have a layman.
Yeah,
just
certainly.
all the time.
But you know who's not a layman?
Eddie
Hamilton. Let's do it and cue it.
Yeah.
Was this mission brief always the mission brief? Was there ever a different version of the mission brief? I know in the last movie there was a different version that got cut or changed to the one that's there now. So I was just wondering.
That's a good question. I don't know. The only thing we simplified it a bit, but it was always going to be the president. You know, it was always going to be Angela Bassett. Although in our first few test screenings, it was Chris McQuarrie's voice because we hadn't recorded Angela at that point because the mission brief always gets rewritten quite a lot. So it was rewritten, but it didn't change. Like the inherent structure of it remained the same, and the fact that Ethan was watching a VHS tape and a TV, that was always the same, because it had to be something analog, because digital information can't be trusted and things like that. So there wasn't really a different mission brief in this case.
In this movie, there's a lot of like shots and sequences and recaps that like go by, no pun intended, like in the blink of an eye, sort of like
Yes.
incredibly fast and look super duper cool. But
Yeah.
sometimes you're like, what did I just see?
Yes.
And how is the editor? Are you balancing like the average human comprehension time?
Yeah. So you've got a few instances of that. The first one being right at the beginning of the movie after the coffin shot. You know, we live and die in the shadows, for those we hold close, for those we never meet. And then you get a kind of entity memory blast of everything that's going to happen in the film, with a few red herrings thrown in there of like dead Grace and dead Benji and a few things like that, where you see things that don't actually happen in the film. But really it was a way of giving the audience a kind of visual punch right at the start, and a foreshadowing of the kind of experience that Ethan would have when he got in the coffin. And then once Ethan does climb into the coffin and confront the entity, there's a lot of very quick cuts and things in there, you know, and the entity kind of rewinds his mind, and that, I hope that came across. It's hard to know what people really perceive is going on there, but I did this thing where I put up like 2 frame images of all the things that had happened in the movie in the reverse order. and I put a resize on it from 110 to 100. So everything was kind of zooming away. So it feels like you're going back in time. I hoped. Anyway, that was my intention. It was quite a fun thing to play around with. And then we've got these 1 or 2 frame dissolves occasionally to soften the edits. So they're not always cutty. They just have a softness to them. You know, whenever we're cutting between 2 locations and the team are finishing each other's sentences, I would often do that just to make the cut slightly soft when you're transitioning from one location to another, which is a whole Chris McQuarrie, idea. I think we first did it in Fallout, actually. But anyway, when you're building anything like that, you are very aware of the audience's comprehension and the exact emotional effect that you're having with the audience when they're seeing these images. And you never get it right first time. You're always refining it endlessly. Like, anyone listening to this who loves editing will know that everything starts out pretty lumpy and uneven and not really watchable, quite frankly. Any first assembly is a bit of a mess. And you refine it and you refine it and you improve it until it does start to flow and have a life of its own. It's very time consuming, editing. People who haven't done it can't quite comprehend that. The moment that they think, oh, I'll make a little video for my mum's 60th birthday or something, and they try and start editing on their phone, they're like, blimey, this takes ages. I'm very aware of all those things when you're building this stuff and trying to make sure that I'm giving the audience the right emotional effect, and then obviously embracing the use of sound design and music and visual effects perhaps to enhance that as well, and color, obviously color correction. So we're using all the filmmakery tools to create the best emotional effect for you guys.
We talked a lot a bit about the biplane sequence, but the other sort of showstopper sequence, and maybe my favorite sequence in the franchise, I don't know, it's so awesome, is the submarine sequence.
Yeah.
Which I saw in Dolby and I saw in IMAX, and
yes.
The sound is just horrible in the best way. Can you talk about, I don't know, just putting that together? Because that just seems crazy. For sure.
It was a lot of work. The sequence started out twice as long, obviously, as everything does. There was a lot more of it. Like originally, here's some things. Ethan used to land on the hull, and on the fancy dive computer on his wrist, he would start a countdown from 10 minutes. So we were telling the audience he's got 10 minutes to get in and out of this submarine, which kind of added a sense of time pressure. But at a run, the audience found that extra level of clutter too much. So it lived in the movie for a while. We also tried a voice, like a dive computer voice in his head, a bit like in Fallout when he's, doing the skydiving above Paris. But that didn't work either. Originally, so we took it out. He landed on the hull. We also tried intercutting the action on the submarine with the scene with the Marine recon divers, where they're telling him about what's going to happen. And we had a scene where he tried to get into a hatch on the submarine. And because the pressure was uneven on the outside and the inside, because the inside of the submarine was not flooded, he couldn't open the door. And we tried to give you a physics lesson about that. And it's interesting, and divers would have got it, but it was just it was just too much. And one of the great things about the sequence is that there is no dialogue for 15 minutes. And so if we had these bits of narration from the other characters, it doesn't give you that lonely simplicity of just being with the character for that entire time and following his journey into the submarine. The other thing that we tried, actually, as Ethan was descending to the Sevastopol, we did have a scene where we cut to Grace Haley Atwell waking up and realizing that she was alone on the dog sled and that Tepeza had fallen off in the night. And she stops the dogs and she looks around and she thinks, I've either got to go back into this frozen wasteland where I can see nothing and find Tepeza, or I have to go forward and get the decompression chamber to Ethan. And so we saw her make this decision, and sometimes we cut away from it so we didn't know the decision that she made. And sometimes we stayed with her and saw that she turned the sled around and went back to get Tepeza. But again, it interrupted the connection with the character, and the audience started asking questions about, wait, how did Grace get back to Topeka and then get to Ethan within 20 minutes? Because he's only on the submarine for like 12 minutes or 10 minutes or something, 13 minutes before he ascends. And people started asking questions. And so the way to stop them asking the questions was to cut the scene out. And then everyone just watched the movie. We filmed in this gigantic tank, which was big enough to hold the exterior of the submarine set, which was insane. So enormous. The water is filtered 8 times an hour. The entire tank of like 4 million liters is filtered 8 times an hour. It is crystal clear in there. So when you're watching the scene, all the silt on the submarine, when Ethan lands and he puts his hand on the silt and you see all the kind of sand and dirt moving, that's all added in CG afterwards. And all the particulate in the water that his head flashlight is picking up is also added with CG. It's like invisible, amazing visual effects from ILM, which give the scene all that texture that you would want if you were actually underwater, which we couldn't have because the water needed to be super clear to make sure that the cameras could see everything. And I would be on set every day editing the scene live. I would be on the surface. McHugh and Tom would be underwater communicating with hand signals. And whenever he felt like he had a take that worked, he would hold up his fingers to the camera and spell E like that. He would go E, and then he would do this he would like mime a smile. So he would say E, happy. And then I would say yes. And then on the microphone, they would say, yes, Eddie's happy. The thing is that if you're underwater, I don't know if either of you have been scuba diving ever, but time moves at a different pace. Everything seems to be going in kind of slow motion when you're underwater. It's very peaceful. So your mind can play tricks on you about how long something is actually taking. And sometimes Tom would be going so slowly and I would say, can we do one a bit faster? Because everything is just too slow for the movie. And I would be communicating that to McHugh, and then he would just mime go quicker to Tom. So I was there for all that. And then inside the submarine, they could load each set. So the garage when he first enters, and then the control room, and then the torpedo room, and then the sonar sphere were each individual set that took 2 weeks to take out and load in to the gigantic rotating gimbal that could rotate 360 degrees and submerge and rise from the water, which is how you got all these effects of the water coming up really quickly and things like that. They're not actually flooding the set with water. They're pulling the set down to make it feel like the water's rising. And again, everything it takes ages to rehearse. It's very dangerous. Now, the hardest thing was the rotating sonar sphere. That was very hard. But then also when he gets back into the torpedo room and all the torpedoes are floating around, unbelievably dangerous. The amount of safety because it's all real. There's no CG in that. It's just the CG bubbles. That's the only thing that we added. Everything else is totally real. So all the torpedoes are real and they're all falling for real. And Tom is near them. And, we have to figure out a very strict protocol of where is Tom in the water? When can a torpedo fall to make sure it doesn't hit his back? And when he's being trapped by those two, when 2 torpedoes kind of trap him underneath, that's actually happening on the set. And then he's waiting for the submarine to roll so that they kind of roll out of the way and then he can continue to the door, which then gets sealed by another falling torpedo. And again, that was quite a challenge. They have multiple cameras rolling on that set. So when I get the dailies, I have a lot to choose from. But obviously some of the cameras are pointing at bits of the set where Ethan is not there yet. And they would run quite a lot of the action. So he would come into the shot and you would be able to... So I could see what he was doing in close-up detail. But, it was quite a long process putting that all together and then getting it down. The sound was very difficult to get right. I noticed, I'm really glad, Parth, that you like the sound. It was one of the last things we got right on the sound mixing stage. I also think the music is cool. The way we use this instrument called the space bass, which is a large sheet of metal which is being played with a cello bow, and the Russian throat singers are great. We cracked that quite early on, actually, that the sonic soundscape of the music, but the sound design of the submarine and the fact that you hear the groaning metal all the time, and you hear the metal kind of giving way as it starts to roll, all that stuff, took ages to get right. I mean, a long time. And it all works now, but it was months and months and months of work to get it there. I remember in our first preview, that scene was 25 minutes or something, and probably longer. It might have even been 30 minutes, and it's like 15 minutes now. But I remember saying to McHugh, just give me a few hours and I'm gonna try and hack this sequence down, take a chainsaw to it and really compress it. And I managed to get about 10 minutes out. And then over the course of the next 2 or 3 months, we managed to get maybe another 5 minutes out. And if you watch, as editors, if you watch the sequence, you can see that I'm jumping forward in time quite aggressively in places. When you're in the emotional intensity of the sequence, you don't really feel it. For example, when Ethan goes into the sonar sphere, he gets the key out of the pocket on his arm and then he puts it into the lock to pull the pod cover out. And originally what happened is he got the key out and then he dropped it and it fell through the grating and he had to jump into the water and swim around to find the key and then get back out and then climb up. And it was quite cool. And it was like, oh, why didn't you tie the key onto your suit, Ethan? And it makes Ethan look a bit clumsy. So and it was just an extra 40 seconds that we could cut out of the sequence. So some of those things went. But then when he's putting his pack into the torpedo tube and he's trying to climb into the torpedo tube, a lot of that around there, him taking his suit off, cutting his suit off and all that, that's very, very compressed. If you watch the scene, you can see I'm jumping forward. And sometimes we're cutting to the outside of the submarine. But yeah, that's how the scene came together. But it as usual, it started out very long, and through audience feedback of people saying still too long, we just kept compressing it until those notes went away and everyone started saying, actually, that scene's pretty cool now. It's a highlight for people, which is great.
Hey, Parth.
Hey, Trent.
Sometimes I listen back to these episodes after they come out, and more recently I'm like, I guess Parth didn't think that bit I did was so funny. Because
I cut stuff out?
It's only logical.
It has nothing, it almost never has anything to do with whether I think something is funny. Most of the time it's like something might be funny, but it's at the end of like a 3-minute conversation that led us there. And it's like, we got to cut the 3 minutes out. I'm sorry to say. So the thing has to go. Or something feels more funny when we're talking about it.
And then listening it back.
And I can see you. And then listening back, it can sometimes things might come across flat or more mean or more offensive than we even intend them to be. So then I cut them out.
Fair enough. Given listening to our own selves talking in our first episode, I'm like, I hate myself and I'm mean to Parth. And now, for those reasons, I love me and you're mean to me. And everything is equal now.
Yeah, everything is in its right place.
Everything is awesome. Okay, so the reason this is a 3-parter. Number 1, Eddie Hamilton's awesome. Number 2, we had him in our company. We were lucky enough to have him for an hour. So we're going to chop it up 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. So it works out.
It does work out.
Number 3.
That's another week.
That's another week. Number 4. We're trying to figure out what happens after the other week. So just letting you look behind the curtain a little bit.
Behind the iron curtain.
But here's the thing. It's like we usually come through.
We usually do. Thanks again so much to Eddie Hamilton and his team for talking with us. He was super, super cool. Again, it was really pretty late where he was, and he pushed through. He managed to talk for a full fucking hour.
One last time.
Pretty awesome of him. And thanks to Chris McQuarrie for making this movie. But most of all, thank you so much to you, the listener, for checking out our episodes.
And listening to the bitter end. Parth, I can only imagine how you feel, but in my little bit of research and prep before the Eddie Hamilton interview, there's a lot of videos where it'll be like Eddie Hamilton sitting like next to Chris McQuarrie and they're both getting interviewed. And I'm like, I'm sure Parth fucking eats this shit up.
Trent, on the drive back home, because I was at my good friend Sophia Alexis's home today. On the drive back to my house, I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we could have interviewed Eddie Hamilton again with Chris McQuarrie? Just a thought, Paramount Pictures. Just pointing that out there.
Hear us out.
But yeah, you should go listen to. Well, you're already listening to this episode, but if you want to know where next week's episode is going to be, Trent, is it going to be on all major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Pandora, etc.?
Short answer, yes.
What's the long answer?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good.
Hell yeah. And then also short answer, social media. Long answer, Instagram, Twitter.
But and now we're uploading little clips, aren't we?
Yes. Now we're uploading long overdue. You know, it's never too late to change. Old dog can learn new tricks.
Mm-hmm.
And the trick is Instagram Reels. And we're tricking ourselves.
The dreaded short form content.
Keyword content. And we're content as we make the content for you. Because Instagram Reels is where like artists go
to thrive.
To thrive nowadays is exactly what I was trying to say. Yeah, that's like where it's sort of...
It's like, it's the fertile ground. There's something within the algorithm that just breeds creativity.
It's sort of like the East Village in like the early 1960s. Like there was just something in the air.
Thanks for listening, guys. We'll catch you guys next week.